Just like to offer a big shout out to Touchdown Digital for sponsoring this week's video. Well, hi everyone, so glad to have you all back here today. Look, just quickly today I want to talk to you about pre-visualization in your images or with your photography, or how to pre-visualize your photography and your images. So basically what it is, I've been using this principle of photography for about, I'd say 15, maybe 16 years now. And I first come across this when I was studying what the world believes to be probably the best landscape photographer ever, and that was Ansel Adams. And Ansel Adams had this thing called pre-visualization of your images, of his images. And I've read a lot about this, and I've read nearly every book on Ansel Adams, and I do have them here in the studio actually, and there's quite a lot of them, but he always talks about pre-visualization of an image. So what is pre-visualization? Well, the first thing you've got to do is you have to do your homework. In other words, in this day and age, there's plenty of ways of finding information, such as Google, Google Earth, all the different picture sharing websites like Instagram, 500 pics, there's lots out there. So if you've got a destination or a location in mind, it pays to do your homework first, because one thing you don't want to do is go to a location and take the same photograph that everybody else has. That's just not really what this is about. Pre-visualization is making something unique in your mind before you actually push the shutter button. So do your homework, do your research, look for areas that you've never photographed before, and then have a look at the images taken by other people. Now that could be just on phones or, whatever they've used, and have a look at the location and the actual image. And then when you arrive at that destination, at least if you've done your homework, you will be able to pre-visualize how you want your image to look. But make sure that it doesn't look like all the other images that you've previously seen at that same location. So what else is there? Think about the message you're trying to convey. Now, when somebody looks at an image, if people look at your photograph and then they say, oh, that's good, well, the photograph hasn't worked. Because what happens is when people look at an image and they automatically think, oh, that's fantastic, I'd love to go there, or where was that taken, that's outstanding. They're not actually commenting on the quality of the work. They're commentating, or they're commenting on, they're making comments on the actual location. So you've got to convey a message as to what this image is all about. So once again, you're pre-visualizing before you take that shot, before you push the shutter button. You have to think about the message you're putting through into your image. So when somebody looks at that image and they make a comment, well, then that's when you know that your image has worked. Now, photography is all about thinking. It's a big part of it, and pre-visualization is a big thing to do. Now, a lot of people don't know what pre-visualization even means. They use it in movies, in the arts, and also in photography. There are people out there that do know about it, but don't sort of like try it. And then the other people, they're out there doing it, but they don't know they're doing it. And it's all about your planning and your composition. But before you even get your composition right, you need to know what message you're about to convey when you take that image. You have to make sure that your image talks to the viewer. So when they comment on it and they say, that's a fantastic image, I'd love to go there, that means that image has worked to a certain degree because you've conveyed that message. What's next for pre-visualization? take your time to look. This is probably, I suppose, part of looking for composition, but that's only a little part of it. When you arrive at your location, have a look around and keep in mind the photographs that you have seen on this location when you were doing your homework at the beginning. And then, and only then, can you look at ways of taking a different image. The world is oversaturated with the same photograph all the time of all locations, and quite frankly, it's becoming quite boring. And I suppose I can put that down to people taking photographs with their phones. So when you arrive at your destination, take your time to look and look at what you're trying to convey. Look at what message you're trying to put out there with each and every image you take. So you look at the scene and you're pre-visualizing how you want that image to look at the end, which is the final result. So do your homework, look at the locations you want to go to. Once you get there, take your time, look at the area, remember what sort of photographs brought you to this area in the first place, and then make sure that you take something different from the ones you've seen previously when you're doing your homework. So to pre-visualize the image before you actually take that shot is very, very important with photography. There is no doubt about it. It's a great thing to learn, and it's a great thing to practice in your photography each time you pick up your camera and you go outside. I actually use this in the studio for my commercial work as well. I take a photograph of a nice meal for a restaurant, but we need to have a glass of wine next to it. That just completes the package. But I pre-visualize that before I do it, and it's no different with landscape photography. Pre-visualize how you want your foreground to look. Think about all these things before you take your photograph, because I know we're living in the digital world. You can take 100 photographs and maybe one or two will be okay, but let's not take 100 photographs. Let's try and take a handful and make sure that they're all good. So pre-visualization is really, really good. And the last part of pre-visualization with the photography is the end result. Now, as I said earlier, the end result is an image that you pre-visualized how you wanted it to look. Now, you take the image, you're shooting in RAW, you've got it back home in the computer here, and you start to do your editing. Even while you're editing, have that pre-visualization in your mind as to how you want that image to look like when you finish it. There's a bit of a knack to it, where you have to have a very good memory. I was there this morning. This is how it was. I've got the composition and I've got all my foreground, all the elements are correct, everything's perfect. But now I've got to edit the image. Now, if you're careful with your editing, you will get the end result that you pre-visualized at the beginning when you took the photograph. So make sure that your pre-visualization starts at the beginning, right when you do your homework, when you start looking at the other people's photographs on the area you want to photograph, all the way through to the editing stage when you finally finish editing that in Lightroom or whatever program you're using. And then and only then would you be happy, or should you be happy, with the image that you have created. And there will be a message in that photograph where you can draw people to that photograph and then into that location. In other words, when they look at your photograph after you've pre-visualized everything and you've got everything right and you've finished it right to the end, and you start showing somebody those images, the idea is to make them feel like they are actually standing next to you when you took that shot. That's how pre-visualization works in photography. So I suggest, if you're not doing it, just practice it. Take your time. Look at the scene, pre-visualize how you want the image to look, then push that shutter button, take it into your editing program, and then finish that pre-visualization shot that you started way back when you started doing your homework. One more tip. You go out for a day and you've taken some nice images, got a couple of nice frames there. What I suggest to a lot of people is don't go home straight away and start editing straight away. That is probably not the best way to go. If you're doing that and you're happy with that, I'm happy for you. However, take the tip. If you just wait a couple of days and then start editing your images from 2 or 3 days ago, you'll find that your editing will be a lot better than if you do it as soon as you get home. And the reason for that is you've had a great day, you know you've taken some really good photographs, and you put it in the computer and you start doing your editing. You're still rushing a bit, you're still on a high, you got this, the endorphins are flowing and you want to get it really done and really out there to people so people can see it. I suggest you don't do that. I just think wait a couple of days before you edit your images, and you'll find that your images will be so much better because you're calm, you're relaxed, you know what you've got to do, and you've pre-visualized the image. That's very important. Remember that, pre-visualization. So that's it. If you've got any questions or comments, please put them down below. If you're new here to this channel, hi and welcome. If you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button and the bell next door so you don't miss anything. Tomorrow, we've got rain here in the mountains today. Rained probably on and off all night, and it's still raining now. Tomorrow, though, I'm heading to the coast to Minamurra Headland, which is the start of the Kiama Gerringong Walk. Brilliant scenery, and I can't wait to get down there. It'll be a very early start. I think I'm leaving here about 3 a.m. tomorrow morning to go down to Minamurra Headland and see what I can pull out of that area there, and that'll be a 6-week photography sort of like, I don't know, 6 weeks of photographing that area, I suppose, like a project, and I can't wait for that. So, and that'll be posted the next couple of days anyway. So that's it for another episode of Sniper Photography. I hope you got something out of this. Remember, pre-visualization, try it if you haven't tried it, and it will help your photography greatly. So until next time, as I always say, be nice to yourself, family and friends, but most of all, you keep smiling and keep shooting. Bye for now.